And a very good day to you. Yeah, thank you for tuning in on my channel, on my video. Thank you for watching this. Yes, I'm actually in a good mood. I don't know why that is, but sometimes these things happen, you know. Not that I have so much great news. I mean, sometimes the weeks go by and you go like, okay, what did I do this week? Well, not much. I did work quite a lot. Well, I did do a lot actually. I did work on a lot of translation work. I had a bummer this week. I had to go to the dentist. Now that's not a big deal, but I thought to go on my motorbike, and while I was traveling on a very good road, actually I was doing about 80 kilometers per hour, all of a sudden my whole engine ceased, blocked my rear wheel, and that was quite exciting, and I think that's about the most exciting thing that happened this week. So the trouble of this is, of course, that my engine is probably ruined, but I'll have to see how I can fix it anyway. So I've got a topic for this video. I've been thinking about what is actually really important in a Christian life. Well, I think that the command of giving an answer to all those who want to know about the hope that is within us. What did I do to that text right now? I think a lot of Christians walk around not even knowing how to answer certain questions, and so I came up with 5 questions every Christian should learn how to answer. You know, I know that apologetics is not for everybody, and besides the minimal things you need to know, I believe you need to know as a Christian about your faith, you know, the primary doctrines. I think these 5 questions are very interesting to learn how to answer as well, because quite often these are the questions that are being asked on the work floor or wherever you go. So let's dive into it. Oh, and another thing, I've been thinking, quite a few Dutch people have been asking me why I don't make videos in the Dutch language. Well, what I do is I make a transcript in the Dutch language and I place that on my website. So you can always read it, but I know a lot of people like to watch a video. And I've got some good news for my Dutch friends. There are some very good channels on YouTube by Dutch people who actually really dive into Christianity and into apologetics. And the first one I wanted to mention is from a young guy called Chris Van Hagen, Chris Van Hagen. No, I ruined his name. Chris Verhagen, sorry. And his channel is called Christelijke Apologeet, which is Dutch for Christian apologist, which is really good. I would really encourage you to watch his channel. Another one, and he's got 2 channels actually, and his name is Karel de Lange, and his Dutch channel is called Geloof en Reden. So it's Faith and Reason, and his English channel is The Thinking Dutchman. So isn't that cool? Now I know there are many more Dutch people who have a YouTube channel, but I particularly like these 2. They don't know me. I only know them because I've seen their channel, I've watched their content. So there's nothing into it for me, but check it out and maybe you can learn a whole lot of new stuff about apologetics. Anyway, let's go. The first question that can be asked quite often and you should learn to answer is how the question about have the New Testament documents not been corrupted. I've been asked this several times, and true enough, we hadn't had the possibility back in the time to copy, just simply copy and paste documents on your laptop, right? So all the documents had to be copied by hand, which was just a very tedious and precise work. And on top of that, we do not have the original document as written by the apostles themselves. I mean, if we would have them, it would have been much easier to check them for errors, right? But no need to worry, because we've got many smart people in this world, and some of these smart people are actually practicing a science which is called textual criticism. And in this science they are able to reconstruct the text of ancient documents by comparing them to other copies. But you know, the fact that there are many copies of the manuscripts and early manuscripts, that doesn't make their job much easier. But it does make the results very accurate. To be short, the more copies of manuscripts and the more early manuscripts a scholar has, the better the results, because he's got more to compare with. And also you need to know that the New Testament documents have more manuscripts and earlier manuscripts to support their accuracy than any other work of ancient classical literature. So there you go. Most scholars are in agreement that the New Testament has been copied with an astonishing high level of precision. You know, the deviations are actually so small between these copies that the possible negative effect on the primary Christian doctrines are just not really there. So, I mean, we're talking about something like writing the name Luke with a C or something like that, you know. It's not really that big of a deal for our faith. I read some parts of a book from Mr. Hickson and Gurry, and they have the following to say about this. We do think that even the most textually corrupted of our manuscripts and editions still convey the central truths of the Christian faith with clarity and power. In every age, God has given his people a text that is more than reliable enough to know the saving work he has accomplished through Jesus Christ. Anyway, I have made some other videos on this topic as well. I will place the links in the video and in the description below. So number 2, I would say the question goes like, does the Bible condone slavery? And now I've got a very good idea for you. You just go to a birthday party, and to get the conversation going, you just drop in the word slavery. I can guarantee you it will have a blast. You will have a blast on that birthday party. Success guaranteed. So why is that, you may ask? Well, you know, most people will right away think about the abuse and the forced labor of black Africans. You know, in the Netherlands, our political leaders are actually using this episode in our history to show how wonderfully enlightened they are. Not to say woke. They just keep on apologizing for our history. And they do so actually without recognizing the past slave trade in Muslim countries, where many thousands of white Europeans were badly used as well. Actually, that slave trade is still going on as we speak, but that's a whole different topic. You see, in the Old Testament system, as set up by the Lord himself, we see the word abed, which is often translated in the English language as slave. However, this Hebrew word did not have the same negative meaning as it does in our time. In the Old Testament times, this type of servanthood, which it was a way for an impoverished person to pay off a debt through the means of voluntarily work. And sure enough, I agree, it wasn't perfect, but at least the servant was given food, housing, legal rights and protection from abuse. So, and then even, I mean, what's more, after 7 years, the servant was released from his debt. He was free to go and received a good gift of flocks, wine and grain. Also, sometimes, we can see this also in the Bible, the Israelites were to keep servants from other nations. And this was only possible if they conquered that nation in war. Still, mind you, these strangers were also protected from mistreatment under biblical law. The Israelites could not just go to a neighboring country like we did in the past centuries and kidnap people in order to use them as slaves. Human trafficking was punishable by death in the Old Testament. So I guess you would think twice before doing such a thing, right? Okay, but now we've come to the New Testament. And now things get a little bit more complicated. this was the time of the Roman Empire, and you know the Romans didn't exactly obey God's rule on slavery. However, you will not find any passage in the New Testament that agrees with this kind of slavery. It were difficult times to speak out against it, since 85% of the Roman population were slaves. I mean, the Romans were very alert when it came to a possible rebellion. If the New Testament writers had encouraged the slaves to rebel, it would not have gone down well. Mostly people who did that would have faced persecution and even execution. So instead, the Apostle Paul taught that in Christ, slaves were on equal terms with free people. It was revolutionary to state that a slave could be the brother or sister of his or her owner. And what was Paul doing? He was actually encouraging people to change their hearts. And later we see people like John Wesley and William Wilberforce working tirelessly to get modern slavery abolished. Anyway, I've written an essay on this topic and you can also read it on my website. I will place the link again in the description of this video. This brings us to number 3. Is there any evidence for the resurrection of Jesus? Okay, let's see what most ultra-liberal and far-right conservative scholars agree on. You see, Mr. Gary Habermas, I don't know whether I pronounce his name correctly, he collected over 1,400 works of these people written between 1975 and 2003. And I mean, this was the result. They all agreed on 4 things. That Jesus died by Roman crucifixion. They agreed all on Jesus' disciples believed he rose from the dead and that he appeared to them, and they were willing to suffer and die for these beliefs. The scholars also agreed that Paul, the radical persecutor of the early church, all of a sudden became a Christian himself after having an experience that he believed was the risen Christ. And the fourth thing they agreed on was James, the brother of Jesus, who was first extremely skeptical about his brother's claims, but he too suddenly converted after he believed he had seen the risen Jesus. Imagine that, seeing your own brother being raised from the grave. How cool is that? Anyway, besides these 4 arguments, 75% of these scholars also agree with the story that Jesus' tomb was found empty. So, let's be honest here. I mean, these scholars are no nitwits, right? I mean, especially note that even the liberal scholars mostly agree on all those aforementioned 4 points. And I mean, they, above all, would rather see the resurrection debunked once and forever, but they agree on these things. So, let's look at these points. I mean, what would be the most reasonable conclusion? I mean, when a skeptic would like to dismiss these agreements, I can assure you that he or she isn't actually really interested in your answers anyway. Up to number 4. Is there evidence outside the Bible that Jesus existed? And okay, beside the fact that the Bible is a unique collection of ancient documents which are acknowledged by many scholars as historical and authentic, there are several sources to be found outside the Bible as well. In my opinion, you don't need to go outside the Bible because the Bible is considered to be historical and authentic anyway. But we know of 10 non-Christian sources that bring up Jesus as a real person. Within 150 years of his life, he's mentioned by Josephus, Tacitus, Pliny the Younger, Plegon, Pallas, and then, how do I pronounce this name? Suetonius, Lucian, Celsus, Marabar, Serapion, and the Jewish Talmud. Now, in this list, we didn't even include the multitude of Christian historical witnesses who wrote about him, including the eyewitnesses. But they never made it to the Bible, but their writing is still there. So when someone doesn't accept the Bible as proof, which is not really testifying of an informed mind, you can always point out these other sources. Okay, and then the final point I think you need to learn how to answer: does science disprove God? Now, modern day science is foremost materialistic, and that makes it easy to answer this question. You see, God is spirit and by definition not material. As such, he can't be tested the way scientists would like to do. So by saying that God doesn't exist, one is leaving the realm of science, because it's a philosophical assertion which can't be proven in a test tube. When scientists say that God doesn't exist, they have to filter their evidence through the materialistic lenses. But these lenses, per definition, dismiss the possibility of anything outside the material world. So science doesn't have much to say about God. We can point at clues, but to test God in a scientific way that people want to do today, it's just not possible. So science cannot dismiss or disprove God. Now, obviously there are way more questions that can be asked, but I think that these 5 are among the most common. We are called to be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear. That's 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 15. So besides the primary teachings of our faith, I think we should try to actually be ready always. So don't become lazy, study the Bible, try to be ready to answer these questions. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Maybe you just disagree on certain things, that could be possible. Just leave a comment. But remember, I'm mostly active on my Apologeet channel. You'll find a link to that channel in the description of this video or on my website. So I very much appreciate your prayers and your support. Please take a look in the description of this video to find out how you can help me. Also, I'll place a link there to both the Dutch and English transcripts of this video. So, God bless you, thank you for watching, and Lord willing, we'll see each other in the next video.
Thank you for watching this video. You can give me a thumbs up if you liked it. You can also subscribe to my channel, or even better, follow me on Apologeet. That way you will never miss a new video. You will find all the links in the description below.